Statehood for the people of DC, a timeline of events. In 1788, the General Assembly of the State of Maryland authorized a cession of territory for the seat of government in the United States. In 1789, Virginia does the same. In 1800, the seat of government of the United States is transferred to the District of Columbia. With the creation of the capital of the United States, those living in the areas given by Maryland and Virginia lost political autonomy. In other words, they could no longer vote in elections. From the 1800s to the 1880s, Congress makes it clear that it does not plan to give DC residents voting rights. 1888, one of the first campaigns for congressional representation is launched. Senator Henry Blair of New Hampshire introduces the first resolution for a constitutional amendment for DC voting rights, but his efforts fail. In 1902, Senator Jacob Gallinger, a Republican in New Hampshire, introduces a resolution to amend the Constitution and make a state of the District of Columbia. His efforts failed. In 1917, both the House and the Senate proposed an amendment to the Constitution that would grant district residents representation in Congress. The U.S. entrance into World War I pushed the efforts to a later time. In 1952, President Truman stated in an address to Congress, "I strongly believe that the citizens of the District of Columbia are entitled to self-government. I recommend enactment of legislation to provide home rule for the District of Columbia. The denial of self-government does not benefit the national capital of the world's largest and most powerful democracy." In 1955, Congress passes a DC election law that established Board of Elections, procedures for registration, nominations, and voting officials for political parties. All this happens even though DC residents don't have the right to self-government. 1960 and 1961. On June 15, 1960, the House passes a resolution for the 23rd Amendment. The next day, the Senate agrees to the bill. In March 1961, the 23rd Amendment to the Constitution was ratified by 39 states. The amendment allows DC residents to vote for the President of the United States by giving the district the same number of electoral college votes as the smallest state in the U.S. In 1978, Congress passes a constitutional amendment that would give D.C. full congressional voting rights, 2 senators, and several representatives based on population. The states were given 7 years to ratify the amendment. It was never ratified. In 1990, D.C. residents elect their first statehood shadow senators and representatives. These congresspeople have no power in Congress. Eleanor Holmes Norton is elected as a delegate. In 1991, D.C. delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton tries endlessly to have Congress vote for the New Columbia Admission Act that would create the state of New Columbia. She has failed multiple times and continues with her efforts to get Congress to pass this bill. In 1993, 2 senators introduced a companion bill similar to the New Columbia Admission Act. One of the senators notes, "For district residents, statehood is critically needed today. The legislation we introduce today will grant statehood to the district. District residents have spoken out for statehood for many years, and it is time for their status to evolve to full statehood. The people of the District of Columbia serve bravely in our armed forces, but cannot vote for the men and women in the House and the Senate who make the war declaration. They pay taxes and have no federal representation. Taxation without representation was wrong in 1775, and it is wrong today. We ought not to have a second-class citizenship in this nation. Accepting the District of Columbia as a state will once and for all end the inequality of these American citizens." In the early 2000s, several international organizations, including the United Nations Human Rights Committee, find that DC's lack of voting representation in Congress violates the residents' human rights. In 2009, Congress considers granting DC a real vote in the House of Representatives. The Senate votes for a bill, but with a rider, a condition added to bills that are often not related to the bill itself, that would remove gun laws in the district. The bill also prohibits the district from providing money for a needle exchange program. Other riders are often added to the district's budget, which Congress approves. 2015. On January 13, DC Delegate Norton reintroduces the New Columbia Admission Act with 93 co-sponsors. On June 25th, Senator Thomas Carper reintroduces the act in the Senate with 17 sponsors. No further action has been taken yet. The bill is in a congressional committee.